love this matchup. Of course, the Mavs don't have Porzingis. That takes some of the luster off. But still. Anyway, first it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Look, Steelers lose to the Bengals. That's the third straight loss. And remember, the one win was against a Ravens team where everyone had COVID. No Lamar Jackson, no one. And Pittsburgh barely beat them. And look, they ruined. Here's the chance. You're going to play the Bengals. You're going to beat the Bengals, right? Divisional game. The first time they linked up, I was thinking the Bengals in a sneaky upset or at least a tight game, and Pittsburgh stomped them. So now I'm thinking, sans Joe Burrow, there's no way that the Bengals can win, and then they won. And that's bad for Pittsburgh, obviously. It's 27-17 loss. Couldn't clinch the AFC North with the easiest game in the division. And Roethlisberger, here's the thing. Are you worried about Pittsburgh? Yeah, but it comes down to one thing, and that's Ben Roethlisberger. Because it's a bad combination when you're not getting run blocking and when you're getting extremely predictable play calling by Fitchner, the offensive coordinator, who was Roethlisberger's quarterback coach for a while. But, like 3 or 4 years ago for a while. But that's bad enough, right? You can't run the ball because you can't get any run blocking. And you're having predictable play calling. But when you combine that with a quarterback who can't get the ball down the field, it's especially bad. Because they're basically approximating the run game with these short passes from Roethlisberger. And it's going to be less effective when everyone knows they don't have to worry about anything deep. So that is the real problem. It's Ben Roethlisberger. It's the quarterback. And he was really bad last night. He didn't complete any of his 7 throws of 10-plus air yards in the first half. Now, what's the defense know after that? It's going to be a long night for the Steelers. The Bengals defense starts to key in on that. They were 14.5-point underdogs. You don't see that often in divisional rivalries or divisional games at least. Think about that. The Bengals are facing a team that lost 3 out of 4 going in, that had played 3 games in a 13-day stretch at one point, and then was coming off a loss after that on a short rest, by the way. There was 3 games in 13 days and then short rest against the Buffalo Bills. This is the first time they had a full week's rest. But after that, trial by fire late in the season, the Steelers were crispy. But how often do you see, given all that, the odds makers are saying Pittsburgh, if you want to bet Pittsburgh, you got to give the Bengals 2 touchdowns and then some? And they lost? Their win along with the Bengals win along with the Jets, who were 17-point underdogs against the Rams. But that makes sense. First of all, not a divisional rivalry, an AFC versus NFC game. One of the best teams in football, one of the better ones, certainly, especially in the last month or two, the Rams, versus the worst team in football, clearly the Jets. That is like, I get a 17-point spread. I get it. In the NFL, that's dangerous, but I get it. 14.5 points in the division. Oof. Anyway, it's the first time 2 underdogs of at least 2 touchdowns have won outright in the same week since the year I was born, 1973. Boy, those were massive upsets. If the Steelers lose to the Colts next week, and there's a good chance they will, and the Browns beat the Jets, and there's a good chance they will, both teams will be 11-4. So what does this come down to? I was talking about this a couple of weeks ago. Ooh! Week 17, Steelers-Browns in Cleveland, AFC North Championship on the line. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. And by the way, do you believe in the Browns, yes or no? That's the game that'll tell you everything. It'll tell you everything. Forget about whether they win the division or not, the Browns. It'll tell you everything. Pittsburgh in free fall. Divisional crown on the line. You have to beat the 2 big brothers in the division. You got to beat them. And they've lost twice to Baltimore, and they've lost to Pittsburgh. That'll tell you but they're trending in the right direction, right? Baker Mayfield led them right down the field after Lamar came out of the locker room with cramps or whatever it was and threw that 44-yard touchdown play on 4th and 5. And then Baker's nodding on the sideline like, okay, I got this. Leads the Browns right down the field. They score, and Lamar gets back 4 completions, and they kick a field goal. But it's like, okay, no moral victories in the NFL. That's not true. Yes, there are. And that was one for the Browns, trending in the right direction. Can you imagine if they lose to the Steelers last game of the season after all that, still fail to beat their divisional rivals at all? They go 0 for 4 against the 2 teams they got to beat in the division, lose the AFC North crown after trending in the right direction. Ooh, that would be brutal. But think about it from Pittsburgh's point of view. It would also be totally brutal. When they were undefeated, can the Steelers go undefeated? And oh my God, Roethlisberger's comeback player of the year. Is he in the MVP conversation? And then you blink and you go, Roethlisberger can't throw the ball more than 10 yards. The Steelers can't run the ball. Their defense is compromised because of injury and because they're exhausted. And all of a sudden you look and you go, wait, they're going to not even win the division? They're going to lose it to the Browns? What a Week 17 matchup. That's great. And I got to say something. When you look, we were arguing about this on First Take today. The Steelers, like how much is Tomlin to blame? When you looked at the schedule, let's back up. The Steelers are supposed to have a bye later in the season like every other team. Instead, they had to take it Week 4 because the Titans got COVID. So they had to take an early bye, and you knew this part of the season was going to be brutal because they had an early season schedule that favored them. It was very soft. But later on, it got tough, right? I just mentioned they're going to play the Colts. They have to play the Bills, or they played the Bills already. They had the Ravens. Like, oh, okay, here comes the Steelers' kind of tough part of the schedule, right? But they were supposed to have a mini bye to kind of make up for it. And by the way, host the Ravens at home on a short week. That's a big advantage for the home team. And that got messed up too. Then they play three games in 13 days right in the teeth of their tough part of the schedule on no rest because they had to take the early bye. They got screwed by the schedule. And that coincides with Roethlisberger looking his age. Don't forget, he's coming off a catastrophic injury, missed the season. And when you looked at the schedule and you go, okay, the Ravens, the Bills, Washington, and who'd they just lose to? I just talked about it for 20 minutes. And the Bengals, right? You look at those teams and you go, they should go 2-2. They're going to lose to the Bills, maybe to the Ravens, and they should beat Washington. They should beat the Bengals, right? You look a reasonable expectation given the fact that they missed their bye and they got messed around with the schedule. 2-2 in that kind of in the teeth of their schedule there. And instead of 2-2, they're 1-3. It's not quite as bad as people make it out to be, but you're not supposed to lose to the Bengals. That was Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. Scoop Jackson joins me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, ESPN senior writer. What's going on, Scoop?
Man? Happy holidays to you, man.
And happy holidays to you, Scoop. Here's the problem with an early Hanukkah. The holidays are over already.
That's
See
true.
what I mean?
True.
The holidays
That's
are
true.
over.
But hey, if you came over to our side, you can start Kwanzaa the day after Christmas, man. It's all good.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's nothing like being Jewish on Christmas because you are truly left alone by the world. You can order some Chinese food. You can hang out, watch basketball all day. No one's bothering you. And, as a grown-up, you ain't getting presents. You got to get the presents.
So
you don't have to worry about shopping. It's so good.
That so much sounds like a Larry David joke, man. You should go right for him. That's classic.
Oh, well, listen, Larry David and I have certain things in common, including probably that. All right, listen. I have to tell you something. We Jews messed up about Hanukkah a little bit, and this is the thing, Scoop. What we did, we're like, okay, this Christmas thing is this is a tough one because your kids get jealous of course Christmas is the greatest holiday ever. Right? So we're like, aha, watch this. You're gonna get because no one does presents on 12 nights of Christmas. You do one night, so one day. So but we're gonna do 8 days. Look at how clever we're being. 8 days of presents, kids. See, you're not gonna miss Christmas. It's Hanukkah. You know what the problem is, Scoop? You know what the problem with it is? We turned the Super Bowl into the World Series. We diluted it. It's over 7 days. Or 8 days. It's like a best of 7 instead of the Super. No, who wants to turn the Super Bowl into the World Series? All right, look, I digress.
It's like having February as your month. You see what we got to go through.
Yeah, I see. February, right? You get the shortest month. Yeah. It's freezing cold.
Yeah,
right?
We're all the same, man.
Yeah, of course. Yes, of course. That's Black History Month. It's the shortest one, and it's freezing cold.
The coldest month.
The powers that be sat down, Scoop. The powers that be sat down and said, all right, we're going to have to give him a month. Let's think about this. What's the worst month? Give him that one.
Hey, at least you are able to choose how you spread out your holiday celebration. We didn't have a choice in the matter.
It was decided for you yourself. Scoop, let me add. All right, here's my take. I'm going to tell you my take.
Yeah.
Ready for this? Because Perkins was on me and Dominic Foxworth was on me on First Take. You know who needs to win the championship more than any other player? Who needs it this year more than any other player in the NBA? You ready for this? LeBron James. LeBron James needs it the most, Scoop. He is a Laker. Only reason Lakers fans like to win a championship is because you can't repeat before you win the first one. And the only reason they like to win two is you can't three-peat before you repeat. These are the most demanding fans in the world in basketball, and because they're used to it. Okay, that's one. Two, he's on the best team in the world, and they got better in the offseason. And they were taking care of the whole Western Conference bell to bell, winning series 4-1. They never got taken 7 the whole playoffs. And he's playing, the best player in the world is playing with another top 5, arguably the second best player in the world. Scoop, he can't not win the championship. That'd be a disaster.
Not even from a legacy standpoint of what he's dealing with, because the LeBron James, Michael Jordan argument is still the biggest argument in sports. It's bigger than the seasonal NBA conversations that we have, because it's transcended just a regular sports argument. So from a legacy standpoint, you're correct, and time is running out on LeBron to really lament himself in that conversation, really take over that conversation, so he does have to win it. And also, this whole argument about Anthony Davis possibly being the best player he's ever played along, so that takes away the excuses of why haven't you won a championship, or why you all just got one together. So I'm with you on that one. I'm with you.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I never hold against LeBron. He lost in 07. They had no business in the finals in 07. That just speaks to how great he is, that he dragged them there, that roster there. I don't hold that against him. I don't hold against him losing to the 73-win Warriors who added KD. You lose those, of course, you can't beat that team. By the way, I don't hold it against them the first time they lost to the Warriors. Kevin Love and Kyrie got hurt. Yeah. That's just amazing. He took them 6 games. But I do hold the Mavericks loss against them. I do hold the loss to the Spurs, who were an amazing team, but so were the Heat. That's just straight up 2 great teams. You lost. And this year would be like one of those, Scoop. The history of the league, when you got 2 top MVP caliber players on the same team, they almost always win the championship.
Here's the thing, Max. The one piece about this Jordan-LeBron argument that people really bring up that I've hardly heard is you never have heard anybody talk about the teams that LeBron has been on that have won championship in the context of them being one of the greatest teams ever. So if we're talking about greatest player, we also talk about greatest teams. And, if Jordan and LeBron teams ever match up, there's not a team that LeBron has been on that we can actually say in the sports argument that could compete with the Bulls at all. Here's the thing. If this team right now, the Lakers, if they play themselves over the next couple of years and being in a conversation of one of the great, top 5, top 10 teams in the NBA, that will be a first in LeBron's career. But he needs that for this legacy argument that we're having. And this makes it no excuse for you not to win, because of all the other teams you've been on, those that have won championship, they've never been considered one of the greatest teams in NBA history. You have a chance right now with AD at his peak, with the players that you're building around, and with the players over the next couple of years that are going to want to come there because of who you all are. You can now enter into, hey, we have one of the greatest teams in history, and that is what cements your argument. And now it's like, okay, I can really be in a conversation with Jordan, because we can have an individual conversation about this, but now I'm on a team that we can have a conversation about. And LeBron doesn't have that. In the lexicon of this conversation, that's necessary, and he has a chance to do that right now.
Scoop Jackson joins me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, ESPN senior writer. You're listening to the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio. Okay, speaking of legacy, Scoop, I thought Kevin Durant, after making a choice to go to the Warriors, which to me was about lifestyle and having fun playing basketball, but I don't think, in my mind at least, it didn't enhance his legacy because, again, you added an MVP caliber player to a 73-win team. Dude, you can't not win the championship. Like, it's almost impossible. So to me, that didn't prove a whole lot. But then he made a gutsy choice. Recovering from an Achilles, he goes to Brooklyn, USA, and teams with Kyrie to try to bring a championship in basketball to a championship-starved basketball town. Do you think Kevin Durant and Kyrie will work?
I think with keeping the pieces that they kept and removing themselves from this whole James Harden nonsense about, giving up what they had to give up to make that happen, I think doing that, keeping the core of the team, keeping the culture of the team, and allowing Steve Nash over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, however long, Kyrie and KD decide to stay there, giving him a chance to grow as a coach and building the coaching team around him that he seems to be building, I think eventually it's going to work. And when you say work, do you mean winning a championship or do you mean being competitive at a championship level? Because, Matt.
No, you got to win a championship, Scoop. Let's put it this way.
Going back to what I said earlier. If the Lakers win it this year, and now they're in the conversation of one of the greatest teams of all time because of their makeup, does that make it, do you still give Brooklyn a chance, or is it okay if they lose a championship or two to that team because they're that great? Do you hold that against them?
That's fine if you lose. No, that's fine if you lose. It's fine if you lose as long as you also win.
Right.
In other words, what Kevin Durant's mission is, you got to win a championship in Brooklyn. You don't have to do it in year one.
No, right.
I agree. Do not have to do it in year one. But you got to win. What's interesting to me, what you said, is the James Harden nonsense, because a lot of people would say adding another superstar would make it better. But when I look at this Nets roster, particularly if you want to play KD as a 5, even though it's not really like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 anymore, but if you want to play him as your big, or as at least the tallest player on the court, because he could do a lot of things defensively too, I'm looking at the depth of excellent players on the team. Like Joe Harris fits in any lineup, can shoot the lights out. But Dinwiddie can do a lot of things, and LeVert is a real player. Like Dinwiddie and LeVert are bubble all-star type players who are ascending. And when you add Harris, who can shoot like that, to your main two guys, maybe they are just better off competitively without James Harden.
I think if you lose all of that, you lose the culture of the team, and you're starting to build a culture from square one if you get Harden in there. Because KD is new to that, Kyrie is new to that, Steve Nash is new to that, and James Harden would be new to that. The players you just mentioned, Max, are the core of that team. That's that team's entire culture. You can't lose a culture, an entire culture, and expect to be competitive when you're starting off at square one when other teams have already have something built in. So that's where I'm coming from. I hear what you're saying. You make perfect sense about the depth of what they'll lose, but in the process of losing that, you lose your entire culture, and now you have to build up a whole new identity with 3 new players who have nothing to do or have no connection to the culture that was there before. So I think that's a large thing to ask. And once again, I think if they get to the finals and lose to the Lakers, if the Lakers become that team that becomes generational, we have a legacy conversation about how good this Lakers team really is over the next 10 years, I think it's okay if KD and Kyrie don't win a championship, only if they lose to this all-time potentially great Laker team. If they lose to anybody else, that's a different conversation. But I think they'll be all right, and I think they will work if this is the team they wind up losing to, if this becomes their rivalry and their albatross.
The great Scoop Jackson, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you coming on as always, Scoop. The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. Hear what Dwayne Haskins did? He must want out of there. Dwayne Haskins does not come across as a fool to me, so that makes me think that he wants out of there. Where does he think his market is, though? I thought Haskins was going to be good. You know what? I'm still not convinced he won't be good. Haskins is much more of a traditional quarterback than these really mobile guys, than these running guys. I mean, he's a little more mobile than given credit for, but you remember in the old days, it used to take 2-3 years in the right situation for a first-round quarterback to make something of himself. So I haven't given up on Haskins, but I'll bet you the league has. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 729-3776 if you want to talk about the start of this NBA season. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance because the NBA tips off tonight. Can Kyrie and KD bring a title to Brooklyn, USA, to New York City? You know how long it's been? I was born in 1973, but in August. That means, not that you can remember things when you're 0 years old, but, you know, the Knicks won in January. Knicks won, in early 73. I wasn't born until August. In my lifetime, I'm 47. You know what I've lived through? Fall of the Berlin Wall, like the whole. When I lived through Muhammad Ali's heavyweight reign, Larry Holmes, Mike Tyson, like on and on. The Bronx is burning, all types of stuff going on. 47 years, 0 Knicks championships. Forget the Knicks. That doesn't mean you got to forget New York. I mean, ABA, Dr. J got one with the Nets when they were on Long Island. But like NBA championship in New York City, oof. Meantime, you're going to get to see them against Steph Curry in his return. No Clay, but he still got Dre. Forgot about Dre. Warriors ain't doing anything this year. They don't have enough shooting. They really don't have enough shooting. I don't think shooting is everything, but Steph Curry shoots, the greatest shooter ever. Not even a single serious rotation piece shoots even average for their position. Not even one. I don't see it with the Warriors, not as currently constructed. I love Dallas against Phoenix tonight. I love it. Now, Porzingis, what are you looking at me for, Raj?
Well, I mean, I want to see that game too, but I'm pretty sure it's tomorrow. I can double check.
Sorry, tomorrow. What did I say today?
Yeah.
What is it? What's today? What's
Tuesday.
Today?
We got
today,
2 games today.
Carry the 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tuesday. That's right. Yeah. I can't wait to see Dallas.
You opening your presents early.
I can't wait. I can't help it. I know what sucks is Porzingis is not going to be playing. That's really that. But when. I just want to see what this Phoenix team looks like. I really think when Porzingis gets rolling for Dallas, though, and they're going to make sure they're going to take it very easy with him at first. When Porzingis gets rolling, Doncic and Porzingis, think about what kind of complementary pieces you'd want around them. A guy like Kleber, right? A 6'10" power forward who can shoot from the outside and defend. And Finney-Smith. Right, a long, lanky, also shooter and real defender. And then you want another guy who can shoot and maybe get his own shot if you need him to. How's Tim Hardaway Jr.? They have, perfect complementary pieces around Doncic and Porzingis. They brought in Richardson. They had to give up a lot of shooting in Seth Curry for that. But Richardson more of a D and 3 guy than a 3 and D guy. But the bottom line is you're going to play him more minutes than Seth Curry. That means he's better. If Seth was better, Seth would play more minutes, right? Let's be honest. They got a real squad, and Phoenix. Oh my God! When DeAndre Ayton, the number 1 overall pick, who ain't a bust. I mean, redo the draft. You take Luka, of course, right? But DeAndre Ayton is already a very good NBA player, right? He evolves a little bit more. He's an all-star. That's still not his full potential. And that's your biggest question mark? You got Mikal Bridges, and you got 2 legit 3 and D guys, just like the Mavericks when you look at the complementary pieces. And then you look in that backcourt, Chris Paul and Devin Booker. And Devin Booker's if you took a little bit of the explosiveness and size away from Kobe Bryant in his prime, that's Devin Booker. With Chris Paul in the backcourt, that is going to be a beast. I can't wait for that game. The NBA is going to be so good this year. The only question is it a fait accompli with the Lakers? And then outside of Lakers fans, does that ruin the season for everyone else? Or are you looking in Philly like Daryl Morey ain't done? In Brooklyn, come on, KD, just be most of what you were. In Milwaukee, do you believe Drew Holiday is the guy to get you over the hump, right? Now it's not just Giannis, and now Middleton's his second best player, and if only Bledsoe would play perform in the playoffs. No, Drew Holiday is a truly great defender, combo guard, who can run your offense and shows up big in the playoffs. You know who shows up big in the playoffs? High IQ players. So they're looking at Milwaukee and Philly and Brooklyn. I mentioned Phoenix, Dallas. How about Denver? The Clippers. Oof, God, NBA is so good. Tips off tonight. 888-SAY-ESPN, 729-3776. And let me tell you why LeBron James is the guy who most needs to win a championship. Ooh, I was arguing with Kendrick Perkins. Was all over me today on First Take. You would say James Harden. Does James Harden have a chance to win a championship right now at this moment? Like, we don't know what team he winds up on. He has zero chance. So does he need the championship the most? Like, in a vacuum, theoretically, but not in reality, because no one thinks he's going to win it this year. No, forget Harden. Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, it'd be great. Does anyone believe Paul George is going to show up in the playoffs? No, we don't believe you. You need more people. Right? Like, that's the bottom line about the Clippers. And they didn't get their guy. They didn't get Rondo or Chris Paul or someone who could organize that offense and make plays when it counts. Make that offense more cohesive and fluid. They didn't get it. The Lakers improved more than the Clippers did in the offseason. So Kawhi, does he need it? He's already got two, and the fact is we don't believe he's got the squad. Who else does that leave? Giannis. Giannis needs one more than LeBron. Guys, they did get Drew Holiday. But the Bogdanovich deal fell through, and the truth is, even had they also gotten Bogdanovich, the Lakers would have been favorites. LeBron James just won for L.A. Lakers fans expect you to now win again, particularly since you gentlemen swept the Western Conference, and then the Eastern Conference champions couldn't take you 7 games. And you got better on paper in the offseason. No, LeBron's got to win. Jay from the Bronx. You're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN
Kellerman,
Radio.
how you doing, brother?
What's going on, Jay?
Two-part thing. Number one, this LeBron narrative. Let's just move on. He's the second best player ever, other than Michael Jordan. I don't want to hear no Wilt Chamberlain. We never watched him play. I don't think he needs the championship. He's never passing Jordan no matter what. He's just stuck being number 2.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so fair enough. That's fair. So whether he wins or not this year, I still feel the same way. And number 2, I'm going to need you. And you have a skill. You get my blood to boil in a good way, where I'm listening to you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
What was that?
Yes, thank you very
It's
much.
like,
It's
I'm going to need you to stop trying to make such a thing. Nobody cares about the Brooklyn Nets. Nobody cares about Kyrie burning sage. You got your boy Dinwiddie trying to peddle himself off for Bitcoin. It's not.
Who you think they care about, Jay? Hold on, Jay, time out. You're in the Bronx. Who do you think they care about in New York?
The Knicks are terrible. I'm going to start with that. I'm a Knicks fan. We are terrible, but
Right.
No one cares about the Nets.
No, Jay, let me explain something to you. Jay, how old are you?
34.
Okay. I've been around 13 years longer than you have, okay? Just listen to me for a second. The reason the Knicks are New York's team, or were, the reason they stink for so long and yet they held the affection of the city is because they were running unopposed. There was no alternative. The Nets were in Jersey, the New Jersey Nets. There was never another team in the NBA in New York to compete with the Knicks for the affections of New York City. They're there now. It's over for the Knicks. It's a Nets town, and no one cares about the Nets. Everyone cares about the Nets. They're a national team. They're an international team. There are kids in China and like England named Brooklyn, right? Like Brooklyn is a name that rings bells all over the world. People name their kids after that borough. By the way, Jay from the Bronx. I was born in the Bronx. My parents are from the Bronx. In New York, the Bronx rings bells, of course. But globally, Brooklyn's like the sexiest place in the world, the sexiest borough in the world. Talk about name recognition. And the Brooklyn Nets, a borough that's had no major league championship since 1957, the Dodgers, in a basketball-starved and basketball championship-starved town, have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and you think no one cares? 888-SAY-ESPN. Axe Max is next. Free shipping is great. Free shipping, no minimum? That's the Walmart Plus magic for your holiday. Get all your last-minute shopping done with free next-day or two-day shipping on a huge selection of eligible items from Walmart.
Max.
Well, let me just say first that the Max Kellerman Show is brought to you by Shell Pennzoil Synthetic Motor Oils. They're made from natural gas. It gives you unbeatable engine protection. The proof is in the Pennzoil, based on Sequence 4A wear test using SAE 5W30.
Axe Max.
Now we have an Axe Max. Now it's time to Axe Max. Andre in Cape Cod, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio. What you want to ask me?
Yeah, Max, I want to ask you how you're going to react when the Brooklyn Nets become the class of the town, the talk of the town in NYC. Because as I see it, it's not just about the talent on the court. The Brooklyn Nets have the best coaching staff in the NBA. They have 4 NBA head coaches: Nash, D'Antoni. Don't forget about Jacques Vaughn, who's still there, and Ime Udoka. That's why I think they're the odds-on favorites to win the Eastern Conference. I need to ask you, Max, how are Knicks fans going to respond?
Knicks fans will become Nets fans. Understand, Knicks fans, like I was a Knicks fan, and your loyalty is about your suffering. Like, if you suffered for that long, was it all in vain? Your loyalty is about the work that Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley put in. And before them, if you're old enough, and I'm not, Clyde Frazier and Willis Reed and Dave DeBusschere, right? Like Earl the Pearl and Dollar Bill Bradley. But in my era, is Patrick Ewing, before them, Bernard King, and later on, you know, Marcus Camby and Anthony Mason and all these guys. Like, that's where it's those guys that you still respect and love, and your heart and soul was in the team, and all the stuff. It's all for naught, right? Like, it didn't mean anything if you just abandoned ship. But then you realize, if you think about it long enough, what did the Knicks ever do for me? How did they reward all that suffering and hope? With nothing. With James Dolan thumbing his nose at the fans. And now a team grows in Brooklyn. And you see how, if a New York franchise is simply run competently, just like that, superstars want to come. But they never come to the Knicks. No, Knicks fans will become Nets fans. Khalil in Arizona, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Hey, Max. So everyone's talking about Dallas. Everyone's talking about the Suns. No one's talking about the Nuggets. We were the second best team in the West. Why is no one talking about the Nuggets?
I think because the Nuggets don't look like they really improved. You know, Porter Jr., as he improves, so will the Nuggets improve. As Jamal Murray is ascendant, so will the Nuggets improve. But they didn't make major roster changes, and what we saw was they really were no match for the Lakers, and that's who they have to overcome. And Jamal Murray and Jokic are just a sick 1-2. But LeBron and AD are a better 1-2. And they didn't improve the supporting cast enough to compensate. In fact, the Lakers improved the supporting cast. But otherwise, I hear you. I mean, your hopes rest on Porter Jr.'s improvement. And he should improve. He's young. Who's the loss on, Big Ben or Tomlin? Max Kellerman Show.
Training is coming to your morning.
The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. And the Steelers did fall to the Bengals. That was the game on the schedule you circled in this tough stretch when they had to move their bye from week 4 because the Titans wound up with COVID, and then they had a mini bye they were supposed to get. They're supposed to host a home game on Thursday against their divisional rival Ravens, and that's an advantage to host that game, even in COVID. You know, where there are not as many fans in the stands and all that stuff. It still is a help to have the home game. They not only didn't get that, but they had to play 3 games in 13 days, right? So, like, their schedule really was tough on the Steelers this year, as it turned out. It was really tough on them, and yet when you looked at the thick part of the schedule, like, and you see the Bills, and you look at the Bengals, and you see the Bills, the Ravens, the Washington team, but that Washington game, as it turned out, was coming off another short week where the Steelers had just played the Ravens, right? So there's going to be a letdown. And the Washington defense was surging, and yet they didn't have a name brand yet. They don't have a name, period. Forget about a name brand. So you looked at the schedule and you go, all right, they're going to probably lose to the Bills. They're going to, and they'll be exhausted by that time because their bye was forced to take the bye so early. They're probably going to lose to the Bills. They're going to beat. I'm not going chronologically exactly, but those are the 4 games. They could lose to the Ravens, right? Because they beat the Ravens early, and normally these teams go back and forth. They have a very even rivalry. They're going to beat Washington, and they're going to beat the Bengals. They're going to go 2-2 there. That's when they're going to start to. They're not an undefeated team. They're going to lose a couple games right in there. They went 1-3. So on one hand, it's like, well, that's 1 game difference. On the other hand, it's they were such massive favorites to beat the Bengals, 14.5 points. And then you lose to the weakest team in your division who doesn't even have their quarterback. That's bad news. And Roethlisberger's gone from a guy who looked like, a month or 2 ago, wow, look at this. I never thought he was in the MVP conversation, but some people did. And certainly even that people are thinking that he's doing something right. And now it goes from that to like, damn, this guy can't complete a pass for more than 10 yards. Can't do it. Can't throw the ball down the field. And if you're going to go to this quick release, kind of simulate the run game with these quick little throws, well, that ain't going to help you run the ball, And they can't run. They don't run block in the first place. And then the defense is all set. It's all tuned to these shorter plays anyway. And it's just bad. It's bad news for the Steelers. Also, the play calling, unimaginative and overly conservative. And if you have to point to one thing with the Steelers, it's the quarterback. It ain't the head coach. On First Take today, we asked, do you blame Tomlin for the? Yeah, I blame Tomlin. They have 11 wins. Blame him for that. It's an 11-win team. If they don't win another game, they won 11 games this year. So you want to blame Tomlin? Sure. I can't really. The only thing I can see is that they got to take play calling away from Fitchner, right? The offensive coordinator who was Roethlisberger's quarterback's coach for several years. He's very predictable with the play calling, and what you need is some imagination, given the lack of talent on the offensive line and Roethlisberger's kind of lack of arm strength at this point. But what do you want Tomlin to do about that right now? Mike Tomlin, defensive guy. You want him to take over play calling? Like, you see what I mean? Like, what's he really supposed to do at this point? Oh, when I look at the Steelers, I see a quarterback problem. I see a quarterback issue. Tough to win without a quarterback in the NFL. And Tomlin managed to go 500 without one last year. But you have injuries on the defense right now, and it ain't going to happen. Now you got the Colts coming up. It's tough. And the way things are going, because I think they're likely to lose to the Colts. They're kind of due for a win, but the Colts are good. Good defense. And the Browns have the Jets. That should be a win. And it shapes up for Week 17, NFC North. Steelers-Browns with the division on the line. Oof. And think about it from the Browns' point of view. Baker looks good, right? They're running the ball well. He's spreading it around. He's coming up big with the chips on the line. But he's lost twice to the Ravens and once to the Steelers. And if you're the little brother in the division on the come up, boy, you got to beat your big brother one time. You going to have any faith in the Browns if they won't go into the playoffs, having lost on the last week of their season to the Steelers, and having lost the division on the last week of the season to a team that's reeling? Oh, you got to like the way that shapes up. 888-SAY-ESPN, 729-3776, the Dr. Pepper call-in line. Chris in California, you're on the Max Kellerman Show. Go.
Hey, Max, long time listener. Hey, question for the Steelers. Do they get Sam Darnold or Dwayne Haskins if you had to choose for a trade?
Darnold. If I was going to trade for one, I'd trade for Darnold. Although I have not given up on Haskins. I think it's a bad look to be at a strip club and not have a mask on and all that stuff right now. He's a young man. He's going to make bad decisions at times, and no one's perfect. I would say that Haskins, people forget, is a one-year starter in college, and his learning curve, even in that year, was steep. Like, he went from by the end of that year, he was really looking good throwing the ball down the field. But he's not a super fast quarterback like a lot of these guys. Like, Daniel Jones needs his legs, right? Haskins is more mobile than given credit for, but he's much more of an old-school quarterback. And he's an inexperienced one. Remember back in the day, you could take a quarterback in the first round. They may not start until their second or third year. And when they do, they're not going to be good right away. And Haskins, even compared to those guys, is inexperienced. So I would say it's possible he could still be good in the NFL, but that's a ways away. Darnold is 6 months younger than Joe Burrow and really has been hampered in terms of his development by the organization he's in. The Jets have, Darnold is not one of these guys who will be independently great no matter where he is, right? That's, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. No matter where they would have gone, they'd have been great. They either go to a better situation, Mahomes, or a lesser situation. For several years there, it was Aaron Rodgers. But they're both going to be all-time greats. That's not Darnold. Darnold has, I'd say, B-plus talent. Highly dependent on his situation, and the Jets are making him look bad. Yeah, if I were the Steelers, if I was the Steelers, I would want Darnold certainly over Haskins. News from Max Kellerman Nation. Chris just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. Mike in upstate New York, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Hey, what's up, Max? Yeah, I just got a question. Isn't there a difference between greatest of all time and best of all time? And the only reason I ask that because to me, Tom Brady the greatest of all time, but Aaron Rodgers is the best, and Jordan's the greatest, and LeBron is the best. Do you agree with that?
I do. I don't know if I'd say LeBron is better than Jordan, although the fact is Jordan really didn't shoot the three much. If Jordan were playing today, he'd have shot the three more and better as a result. But I would say, yes, of course there's a difference between better and greater. And let me just say, and I agree with your Brady-Rodgers thing, let me just say, there's one sport that you can time objectively, that you can measure objectively and compare eras, and know definitively who's better. Track and field. So let's take the 100-meter dash, right? I can tell you for sure every single top sprinter in the world today would dust Jesse Owens. Every single one's better than he was. Better. Because you define better as how fast you run. How many are as great? Better refers to your actual level of performance. Great refers to your level of performance compared to your contemporaries. And so there's obviously and absolutely a difference between better and greater. And speaking of better and greater, Dan Orlovsky joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. What's going on, Dan? Dan, are you there?
I'm here, buddy.
Dan, let's start right in, you and me. Let's roll up our sleeves and start right in. What team is Wentz on in 2021?
San Francisco 49ers.
Because?
I do not think that you could have both.
Dan sounds like – Dan, are you calling from the car?
I am. I'm on my way to NFL Live.
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to miss his exit and everything. I've been there. That's I only ask because you're going in and out, and I can kind of hear it. That's okay. I've done that a million times. So you were saying San Francisco, why?
I don't think it's in Philadelphia. I don't think that you could have both those guys in the quarterback room at the same time with the way Jalen Hurts is playing and everything that's happened with Wentz. I think it would be combative, not competitive. You can have competitive in your quarterback room. You cannot have combative because then it hurts your football team. I'll say San Francisco. I know everyone ties them to Indy. I don't know if Indy's going to go that route. I don't know. I know people think Frank Reich loves them, and they had success in 2017. But is Chris Ballard going to dive in and take that contract? He's been really judicious with the money that he's given out. He's been very calculated with what he's done. Are they going to, they traded last year's pick for DeForest Buckner. Are they going to do something like that again? Probably not a one, but are they going to give away draft picks? I'll take on the contract. Where San Francisco, I think, has a window. I think San Francisco has a window. I know Kyle. I know the style of quarterback that he really likes. He's big on teaching at the position. He's won with a lot of different quarterbacks.
some guys that were crazy talented, some guys that were fair talented. And I think that they can get out of that Jimmy G contract. And if you look at the style of play, scheme-wise, and the player, it would be a very healthy marriage.
Yeah, I agree with you about Reich. The idea that, well, he knows Wentz. I think if you know him, you probably don't want him in the building the way he's been behaving and the kind of things you hear. Can you see Drew Brees carrying or not carrying the Saints to a Super Bowl? Can the Saints win the Super Bowl this year with Drew Brees, Dan?
Not when they have to go to Green Bay. I think that's the big thing
that's the whole thing.
That's the big thing that came out of the last 2 weeks is I think the Saints are – everyone knows the Saints are really, really, really good. We know that. Can they go to Green Bay? Can Drew, whose arm is what it is right now, and their lack of explosiveness on offense, can they go to Green Bay and win a game? And I don't think they can. I don't –
Dan, I was thinking about Drew. I was thinking about this. First of all, if you don't get the bye in the first round, and I've been saying this on the air every day so people understand, even if you're 80% likely to win your first game and 60% to win your second game, that means you're 48% likely to win both, right? So that bye in the first round is the difference between being under 50-50 to get to the championship game and over 50-50 if you're a good team. So that's one. Two, Green Bay, it's one thing to go from climate controlled to another kind of condition. To go to the frozen tundra from the dome, that's bad news. And to face Aaron Rodgers, the only thing I'll say is this, Dan. Drew Brees, and maybe it's me rooting for a story. Think of how motivated this dude must be right now. This is it. He was going to retire last year. He had 11 fractured ribs and a punctured lung, right? He comes back maybe more rested than he's been in recent years. Taysom Hill can do things. We can see that. Michael Thomas was out this week. He's going to have, hopefully, Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders and Kamara. Maybe there's some magic left there. There's some kind of extra motivation from this guy that can compensate from some of the stuff we're talking about.
I would love that, too. I love Drew. I think he belongs in the conversation, one of the greatest all time. That's one of the fascinating things about the Saints, Max, is a minute ago I just said, we know the Saints are good, right? But then there's also the caveat of how good do we think they actually are? They've had 2 games this year. They're 10-4. They had 2 games and they had Drew and Michael Thomas on the field. But they're still 10-4. But here, this, style makes fight. The styles makes fights, right? And so Green Bay, what's their flaw? What can you get after them with? Run game. Well, what's Drew Brees' in the New Orleans Saints' strength? Throwing the football. What's Green Bay's strength defensively? They got really good cover corners and linebackers. And so I can't – if New Orleans has got to go to Green Bay, that is a brutally tough matchup. I think the only matchup that I don't like for Green Bay in the NFC playoffs is the Rams. Other than that, they're my favorite.
Yeah, the Rams, I don't know. The Rams need to mature, I think. They fall into trap games, too. You can't lose to the Jets. But speaking of losing to the Jets, they can't even win at losing. I thought they were the worst losers ever, but it turns out, or the best losers ever, but it turns out they can't even do that, right? They blow it on Trevor Lawrence potentially. But do you think, let's say, okay, so Justin Fields will be there. So I've been harping a lot recently on this show on the difference between Rodgers and Mahomes, guys like that, and Brady, guys who were going to be great independent of any situation. The situation would just determine how great, but they were going to be great. It's in them. Most guys don't fall into that category. Most guys are highly dependent upon their situation, whether they turn out to be a disappointment or to have a nice career. Darnold, I think, fits into that category. I think he has B+ talent. He's good, and he might have a good career in the right situation. But if Trevor Lawrence is available, I'd take him. But what if it's not Lawrence? What if it's Justin Fields? Is Justin Fields the kind of prospect that you say you just can't pass up on? The Jets must move on from Darnold if they can grab Fields.
No. Not at all. Sam Darnold, I would say, is a better prospect than Justin Fields. Justin Fields has got some stuff to his game, right? Really big athlete, very graceful athlete. When he okay, this is where this ball is going to go, and number one is open because my coach got him open, and ball's coming out, it's nice, not going to lie. But the weird thing is, and I've had 2 Fields games. I got to study more in depth into the draft, but I've had 2 Fields games. For as nice of an athlete is, he's not twitchy. He's not sudden. And I think you got to be twitchy and sudden in the NFL as a quarterback a little bit right now. If you look at, when you watch Ohio State play offensively, that number 1's open a lot. When number 1's not open, he's a different guy. A lot of quarterbacks are.
That twitchy thing is interesting, Dan. That's really interesting because on the one hand, that could just be an impression, right? But on the other hand, I know what you mean. I see that in all sports. There are great athletes, and they can be fast, but they're not twitchy. Yeah. I'll give people an example. Dave Winfield in baseball. Right? Dave Winfield was a great right fielder for multiple teams, including my Yankees, and was a great athlete. Not twitchy. Not twitchy. Smooth, not twitchy. There are fighters out there who I can think of who are excellent athletes, but they lack that sudden explosiveness. But sometimes, Dan, I feel like that's just kind of an impression they're leaving on us. I don't know if I would base my kind of evaluation on their future on whether I feel like they're twitchy or not. You know what I mean?
No, and that's kind of why I said, I really got to get the full evaluation. I would say this, the most, again, the concerning thing or the flaw that he would have to get a lot better at is he's very deliberate. You can't be deliberate in the NFL at that position right now. He's deliberate with his feet. He's deliberate with his eyes. He's deliberate with his throwing motion. That's not said in a positive connotation. It's said in a negative one. That's going to have to get a lot tighter and quicker. Here's the thing that I just thought about the situation with the Jets that's really interesting. Max, I'll get this point in is, okay, so they're going to hire a new head coach, right? And a week ago, I could make the case that this was going to be the best job of the offseason. With the number 1 pick and all the draft capital and the money you can spend in Trevor Lawrence, I could convince people that that's the best job in the offseason, outside of maybe the Chargers, right? They're in the conversation as well. Now that
I'd say Chargers 1, Jets 2,
right,
but yeah,
now
I hear you.
That they win the game and they're likely to get the 2 pick, here's the conundrum that they're in. Joe Douglas, their general manager, takes the job in part because he likes Sam Darnold, right? And so what happens throughout the interview process if he goes, man, I really want to hire that head coach. I really like that head coach, but I want to keep Sam Darnold, and the coach doesn't. Now you might have shrunk the pool of head coaches that you can actually go and get because the head coach might not want Sam Darnold, and Joe Douglas might feel really good about keeping him.
Yeah, if they don't draft a quarterback, the draft capital they have is embarrassing. The number 2 overall pick, I think the 26th. Then they pick obviously high in all the other rounds. They could put an amazing team around Sam Darnold almost instantly. But of course they won't because they're the Jets. That's the problem. That's why I say if Justin Fields is a can't-miss prospect, he's going to be great no matter what. The Jets have to move on from Darnold because that's what it's going to take to turn this franchise around. A guy whose greatness won't be denied and can't be crushed even by the Jets. I thought that would be Trevor Lawrence, but Jets weren't having any of that. What? An actual great player? A player who can turn our franchise around? Nonsense. We'll go out and beat the Rams. That's just L.A. playing New York dirty right there. Watch this, guys. Go out and lose to the Jets. Oh, and the Rams had something to play for, too. What just happened? Dan Orlovsky on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Thank you, Dan. The Max Kellerman Show presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive's Home Insurance is how it's said in English. Progressive's Home Insurance. Get your quote at progressive.com today. The Lakers are about to raise a banner in their little brother's face tonight.
Sends it over to Durant. Catch and shoot 3 on its way and in. Toes the line. Shoots a 3. Steph Curry is back. Luka Doncic willing Dallas back into Game 6. Shot from 3 is good. Jimmy Butler. Giannis in the open floor. He stuffed with a right hand. Simmons gets around Rondo. Kyrie, Irving. Kawhi Leonard. A huge bucket for Harden.
And I want my damn respect, too.
The NBA is back.
Apparently it was on camera that whole time, Raj. Maybe not. The Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80 and on your smart speaker. NBA tips off in a matter of hours. How is this possible? They just wrapped up the season. Unbelievable. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Lakers and Clippers tip off tonight. Boy, what a difference a year makes. last year I really thought the Clippers were going to go all the way. I thought, look, LeBron always took his foot off the pedal in the regular season in recent years in order to preserve himself wisely for the playoffs. But Kawhi was active and was coming off a Finals MVP, one of the all-time great playoff performances, that whole playoffs. Of course they would have lost if KD would have been healthy, just like LeBron's team lost when KD. Everyone was going to lose to a 73-win Warriors team that added KD. KD, Steph, Clay, Dre. Ridiculous. Of course they're going to lose. But, KD wasn't. I think the fact that Clay got hurt, and people think if Clay didn't get hurt, maybe they beat Toronto, kind of took some of the luster off of Kawhi's Finals MVP, but I didn't think so. I thought the Raptors would win with Kawhi. And I really thought Kawhi and the Raptors would get LeBron and the Lakers this year. And the Clippers. It's not because Kawhi and the Clippers would get LeBron and the Lakers. Not because I'm rooting for the Clippers, although the truth is, when you do a national TV show, you kind of root for your prediction because you want to be smart. You don't really choose who you root for. That ever happened to you? You think you hate a certain team and you're watching the game, you get caught up, and you find you're actually rooting for them a little bit. You're like, what the hell just happened? You don't choose who you root for. It just happens. But I am a Lakers fan, and I wasn't picking against the Lakers because I wanted them to lose. I was picking against them because, number one, LeBron had a big injury, came back, and was not able to show what he still had left in the tank in those playoffs, as he normally does. Number two, I figured Father Time. I thought Bernard Hopkins had fought Father Time to a draw, the great middleweight and later light heavyweight champ, because Hopkins was beating world-class fighters when he was 49 years old. Then he turned 50, got knocked clean out of the ring and knocked out. Father Time is undefeated. And I thought, well, okay, it's time for LeBron. It wasn't. He's doing a good Bernard Hopkins imitation right now, LeBron, at an extraordinarily high level. So that was one thing. The other thing was, if you look at LeBron's career, when he gets to a new location, even when he's paired with superstars, he normally doesn't win in that first season. Forget about getting to the Cavs originally. He didn't have anybody. He was a rookie, But when he got to Miami, he had Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, lost to the Mavs before coming back to win the championship the next year. When he got to Cleveland, lost to the Warriors, although his guys got hurt, before coming back to beat them the next year. Then he gets to L.A. I did not believe in Rob Pelinka. I didn't think that he put together the right roster. I was clearly wrong about that. But beyond that, I think when you have to devote so many resources to get a top player like AD, normally that means that you're a little tapped out that first season. Then you have to replenish a little bit, figure out who works, who doesn't, and then get the pieces just right the following season. But none of that happened. AD was a great running mate for LeBron. He challenged LeBron to set the tone defensively early in the season, which LeBron did. By the time LeBron took his foot off the gas, I think the other players on the team were playing defense because he'd already set the tone. I'm talking about on the defensive end. And then LeBron had one of the all-time great old athlete seasons. Chronologically, he's not extremely old. But considering the number of miles on his legs, he is. And yet he was the best player in the game, clearly, again. And AD, you could argue, was second, but certainly top five. So the Lakers won the whole thing. And furthermore, they weren't front runners. They jumped out to a Western Conference lead early. They never relinquished it. They never looked back. They gentlemen swept the Western Conference and then beat the Eastern Conference champs in 6 games. Now, why is that so significant for this Clippers game tonight? The Clippers went all in on Kawhi, not just to sign him, but to trade every asset they had to bring in Paul George, because otherwise Kawhi wasn't going to come. And the reason they did that, I think, is because Ballmer and them looked at, Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, and them, looked at the Lakers and thought, LeBron's there. They're going to get another superstar, and their clutch is going to deliver AD. You know how that goes. And our window is, where Blake and CP3 and, CP3, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan, everyone, when the Lakers stunk, our window was then to win L.A., and we failed to do it. We got to go in on it right now and get it done. And remember what I said, LeBron normally in year one, they're still the LeBron and the organization are figuring out how to win in year two. But LeBron won it in year one. And the Clippers couldn't even hold up their end of the bargain and get to the Western Conference Finals. And the team that beat the Clippers in the second round, the Nuggets, couldn't even get to a Game 6 with the Lakers. And now tonight, the Lakers hoist their 17th championship banner. Do you understand the Clippers have never been to a conference finals? They've never even been there. That whole time when the Lakers had no one and Jim Buss couldn't get anyone to take the Lakers' money, that whole time when the Lakers were one of the worst teams in basketball and the Clippers were riding high, they never got to a Western Conference, not once. Not once in their history. They got Kawhi and Paul George. They didn't get to the conference finals. And to add insult to injury, the Lakers, right in their grill, raised their 17th championship banner. They caught the Celtics? How sweet is that? The Celtics, when I was a kid, had 13 chips. The Lakers were in second place with 6 chips. Flash forward, I'm 47 years old. Lakers are sitting on 17, and so are the Celtics. So they tie the Celtics, the all-time mark. And considering how many of the Lakers championships have come in the modern era, there's no dispute. Celtics don't have a case. Lakers are the greatest franchise of all time. Obviously, clearly, undisputed. And they raise that banner that indicates that puts an end to any argument in little brother's face. Little brother who shares the same building, the Clippers, who blew their chance. Oh. This is why when I moved to L.A. from New York and I gave up my Knicks, I chose the Lakers. I love these people. Like, I can never root for the Lakers. I'm going to be a Clippers fan. Like people who moved to New York, I just can't do it with the Yankees. I'm going to root for the Mets. Why would you do that to yourself? I moved to L.A. in 2010, was there for 6 years. I said, I'm giving up my Knicks. I get to be a Lakers fan. Nothing like it. Now I have Lakers, Knicks. I can't complain too much about the Giants. Got all my ducks in a row now. So I say Lakers, Knicks, Lakers, Yankees. If you're rooting for basketball in New York, you got to root for the Nets. Max Kellerman Show presented by Progressive's Home Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today. 888-SAY-ESPN. 888-729-3776. Last Take, Your Take is next. Free shipping is great. Free shipping, no minimum. That's the Walmart Plus show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker, taking as many calls as I can here on Last Take. If the sound of my own voice doesn't interfere with my better judgment. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 729-3776. Max Kellerman Show, presented by Progressive Insurance. Small business protection against not against, but for. It's not against, Raj. That's absurd. Why did you write that? Small business protection for more than vehicles with insurance expertise to keep your company moving forward. More at progressivecommercial.com.
You heard First Take?
At least it's good to hear your voice finally, because I know on First Take I only hear you on the intro and outro.
Now hear Max's Last Take.
It's your how many takes do you want from me? Every day I go through this. I'll give you a million takes. Time for you to do some takes. Lazy, freeloading listeners. Give me some takes. 888-SAY-ESPN, 729-3776. Chris in Maui, what's your final take? What's your last take?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you wanted to hear a story about me saving your friend Marcellus Wiley's life from drowning about 15 years ago.
Well, you know what's hilarious about this? Marcellus Wiley, who I used to do Max and Marcellus with in L.A. for almost 6 years. We were at Columbia in the same years, undergrad, who played in the NFL for 10 years.
Yeah.
Marcellus, like a lot of people have saved his life. I've saved Marcellus' life story too. Marcellus, they're calling you. They're calling you, and you refuse to budge. You have all your friends saving you. Why don't you listen when your number is up, Marcellus, when your number is called? What's your Save Marcellus' life story, Chris?
Well, I think it was about 15 years ago. I've thought about it often. I was a beach boy in Wailea in the NFL Players Association. They used to stay down there in Wailea, so we get all the celebs down there. Anyway, he rented a kayak. He went out there with this little girl and got into some trouble.
Marcellus in a kayak right away. That doesn't work. See? Right away.
So I'm coming back from my lunch break.
300-pounder in a kayak.
No kidding. Guy's huge. So I see that he flipped over the kayak and the trade winds had picked up a little bit. So I went out there in a single kayak to help him, and he was just panicking. And I got his little girl in my single, and then me and Marcellus got back to the
Maraca. Yeah.
What?
Marcellus' daughter's named Maraca. You got Maraca must have been young back then. But go ahead.
That was like his girlfriend.
Yes. Oh no. Oh, maybe. Oh, I thought you meant his girl. Okay, you mean he was with a lady. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, it was 15 years ago. And anyway, so it was just funny. Like
that could be anybody.
I'm like 6 foot, 175 pounds, and I'm trying to get this guy into a kayak, and he's freaking out, and he's making this double kayak, which is huge, look like a boogie board. He can't get in it. He keeps
Raj, we got to
out.
get Marcellus on the show to answer to this.
Right,
hold on. You know what, Chris? Take Chris's number. I want Marcellus on the show, and I want everyone who saved his life to tell the story, because I got to save Marcellus's life story too. I don't think Marcellus is supposed to be alive anymore. I think the universe is sending him messages. News for Max Kellerman Nation. Chris just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. I get another call or what, Raj? I don't know. I can't see the call.
He does.
Yeah, I can't hear you either, Raj. Huh.
Marcellus does love cats, so it could be. Whoops, hang on.
We not taking another call, I guess. That was it.
No, you can. No, I'm saying Marcellus does love cats, so maybe it's that 9 lives thing,
Scotty in Spokane, go. You don't have a lot of time. Go, Scotty.
KD, best in the league. He's all-time. He's the best shooter over LeBron. He plays better defense than LeBron. He can score from anywhere. He's like Joe Johnson, but he's 7 foot, man. And I want to say, like, a shout-out to Patrick Beverly, the instigator. Love that cat. From Arkansas, too. I'm from Arkansas.
All right, I'll say this. Let me say this about
let me say this
about
though, over the top of you. Columbia, boo, man. What?
All right, listen. Let me say this about KD. KD, now that he's probably not going to be as good as he has ever been, he's not going to be at his goodest anymore, has a chance to prove his greatness in a way he's never had before. If he can lead a team that's not necessarily supposed to win a championship to a championship, that puts him in a whole new place. NBA, finally back tonight, Max Kellerman Show.
Greeny is coming to your mornings.
It's embarrassing. How do they do that with a straight face? You have made these kids into